One, two, three, four, five, Big Gun, keep my favorite.
What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big John and G, the two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming.
My number 5 favorite co-op game to solo, the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure System. That's right, I count all of these games because I use all of these games. A Dungeons & Dragons game that you can play without a dungeon master. Well, that certainly does help for soloing, now doesn't it? So everything here is this is what I want to call it, an interusable set of sort of ever-expanding standalone box adventures is really what I think this system is at its core. You can use any character from any of the box sets in any of the games. You can mix and match up their abilities. I mean, as long as you're within the class abilities, any fighter cards can be used with any character that's a fighter. And such with all the classes and the characters. So you can, especially when you have all of these games, or at least multiple of these in the system, you're going to be able to really create your own party, which goes well beyond what the 5 suggested characters for that particular box game is. And that opens up an entire world. It makes it feel so much more like Dungeons & Dragons because you really do have all these options. Now, these rules I love because they're easy to learn and they're easy to remember. They're very natural flowing rules. If you have even the basic concept of Dungeons & Dragons and how that's played, that's going to be a plus for you. Not that these are RPG rules, but some of the things that are based right off of the game. And so that's going to bring that familiarity there for you. Now, besides being able to customize the characters, the more of these games you have, and you can even do this with just one, but the more you have, the more options that are open to you, is that you have the ability to customize your own adventures as well as the characters. And I have not done that myself yet. I've not just had the time, but a lot of others have, and it seems to be a very fun sub-hobby within this specific game system. The components are all wonderful. I love the miniatures, and they're all, or most, or many of them are based on some of the earlier pre-painted miniature, plastic miniature D&D pictures, miniatures, though these are not painted. These miniatures, they are not, but otherwise they're fine, good miniatures. You can use them in any D&D, Pathfinder, or fantasy game setting, and it's going to be wonderful. And you can also use miniatures from those really in this system as well. Like if you have the same or similar miniatures in your D&D game system, and they're the pre-painted ones that you've painted them yourselves, just swap them out. It doesn't matter. Oh, and it still looks beautiful. So overall, those are some of the reasons why any one of the boxes in the D&D adventure system are definitely on this list for my favorite co-op games to solo. My number 4 favorite co-op game to solo, Star Trek 5-Year Mission. So right off the bat, a game that is going to allow me to play either as the original series cast or the next generation cast. I mean, I want to know more about that game because I grew up watching the reruns of the original series, and by the time I was a teen, they were just coming out with the next generation. So I have a place in my heart for both of those series, and this game will allow you to play either or mix it up a little bit, right? It's not like time travel is a stranger to the Star Trek universe. Now, going into the whole either cast pitch of this game, so to speak, The components are great. Most of the components are cards, and the pictures from the cards are ripped exactly from the specific television shows from the original series or the next generation. And this fantastic style of art that they're using the actual pictures, leads us into another reason why I love this game, is because you are having the opportunity through a dice rolling system to play through some of the greatest original series and next generation episodes that have ever aired on TV. And you are going to be right there in the middle of these experiences. I always love that. It always makes me feel like I'm there. Another thing that I like about this is it comes with like an egg timer. Yeah, it comes with a little sand timer, and there are some events that are going to happen. These alerts are going to happen where you have to get it done within the time of the sand, or you lose that alert, and whatever bad things are going to end up happening to you and or the crew of the ship, you're just going to have to suffer with. But there's also these priority alerts that once these are flipped, you can't problem solve anything else. You have to just deal with this priority alert. And wow, that has caused me to lose games, where I have things pretty much plotted out. I know how I'm going to handle the last few things and maybe finish the game up, and then boom, this comes out and it just throws a monkey wrench in everything. Yeah, I love a game that can do that. Overall, Star Trek 5 Year Mission is a really fun game, and it always does harken back and bring me back to those specific shows, which is, I think, ultimately, beyond everything else, why I like it. It's the nostalgia there for me. My number 3 favorite co-op game to solo: Judge Dredd Cursed Earth. Alright, so we got a Judge Dredd game. I'm a big fan of the man, and although there are a handful maybe, there are not enough games, I think, in the marketplace for and covering and about Judge Dredd, or the judges in general. I'd love to see like a side judge game. That'd be pretty amazing. I don't know what they do with it. Just a concept just came to me. But no, it's about Judge Dredd, so I'm there. I want to experience this game. I also like the fact that when I'm ready to play this game, I get it down to the table and it's set up literally in a minute or two. Just putting out the cards, shuffling them, and then getting out the tokens that I need. The few tokens that I need to represent the food and the ammunition, the time of day, and then that's it. I'm ready to play the game. And there are so many games that I do love that just have a much larger setup time and take a bigger footprint on the table, sometimes because that they don't get to the table. But this, I don't got to worry about that. When I'm in the mood to play Cursed Earth, it's on the table and ready to play pretty much as soon as I am. The game is all about skill. There's no, even though I love chucking dice, there's no dice to roll in this game. And technically, although this is a card game, there's no cards to play. Not really. The cards in the lineup that you're gonna have to deal with, cards that represent the members of the expedition party. And that's it. Some of the cards that you overcome, you get to hold on to because they're going to give you a certain skill, but you don't get a hand, you don't get a deck really that you're going to be pouring through to find the cards that you need to use and play out. Not at all. It's all skill based. What skill do you have available to you? And if not, are you willing to sacrifice double health? Because sacrificing a character with the correct skill is just 1 health you got to lose. But if you don't have that person available, or it's the last one and you don't want them to die, and you want to pull from someone else that doesn't have that same skill that you need, it's going to cost 2 health. I like this because there are consequences. This is a game where everything that you do, every decision that you make is literally having consequences. Some of them dealing with the very next turn, maybe, because you are damaging your very party in order to get to the end and to get to your goal. And how you do that is going to affect everything from the next step forward. Every single time you have to make a decision like this, and that's every turn. So there's this constant, morphing of strategy to a degree with this, also because of all that. And that's something else that I really enjoy about this game, and it keeps pulling me back. But again, that's tied into the fact that this is such a completely skill-based game. Awesome. My number 2 favorite co-op game to solo. Marvel Champions, the card game. I know some of my regular viewers, friends, fans, family, and all may have thought that this would be the number 1 slot. And when I first thought of doing this category, I too immediately thought that. But there was a few things that I realized that didn't quite get this, specifically in the number 1 spot for favorite co-op games to solo. Now, first of all, it's on this list because it's Marvel, and I am an old and huge Marvel fan. It kind of defined a lot of my life through most of the 70s and 80s, and I guess into the 90s too. And I've just always been such a huge fan of the shared world. That's what I call it, because originally with Timely Comics and the early Marvel stuff, it seemed more like a shared world between the different writers and artists, and they kept this feeling going still to this very day, which is one of the reasons why I've always been more attracted to it than DC. So we got a Marvel game. Right off the bat, that means that I'm interested. But is that really all? No, that's not the only reason this is on the list, or this is in this position in the list. The fact that this is a Marvel game, also the fact that one of the best things about Marvel Comics is the fights. It really is, and this is such. It brings such a feeling, this knockdown, drag out, slobber knocker of a typical Marvel bust up. It feels like I am reading the comic game. It feels like I'm back in the late 80s, early 90s, reading this fantastically fun, amazing Avengers or Spider-Man or Defenders comic book every time I play the game. Also, with this ever-growing and expanding number of heroes and villains that they keep coming out with, Fantasy Flight Games is great for the fact that they will jump and dive in completely with a game, and you know that they're probably gonna be putting out tons of expansions. And this is one of the many games that they do that for, and I am so thankful and happy about that we get to grow this gaming universe together, one expansion at a time, or one hero pack at a time, or one scenario pack at a time. And it's I can't get enough of the fact that there are so many heroes, so many villains, so many encounters to do, and the fact that you can swap out encounter sets, you can swap out so many things to take what they give you as a game session, as an encounter, and if you really wanted to, you could change pretty much everything in it. You can go through and create your own encounters from scratch as well, using the villains that they've given you. This is an amazing, growing, living system. I mean, and the replayability is you can't even count it, because literally every scenario pack they come out with is a brand new graphic novel. You can think of it like that. Each scenario pack is a graphic novel, and each box expansion is like a great 12-issue limited series or something. And it keeps bringing this and giving this to you, and you're able to keep playing it, and you can try each session with different heroes. With the heroes themselves, you can play the same hero several times, maybe switching something out. Maybe you don't want Iron Man to have the aggression deck in his cards. Maybe you'd rather have the protection deck. And this will completely alter the way Iron Man or any other character hero you switch up like this is going to affect the game. Incredible replayability. Love it. Love it. And another thing that I do like about so many of my favorite games, I can say this about, and this is definitely true here, is that the gaming tension as you're taking on the villain. And in any good battle, You know, you're going to feel the tension, especially after you defeat him the first time and you got to flip him over to his more difficult side, where you're going to have to beat that in most cases in order to end the game. And the way that they then increase, it causes us an amazing amount of tension, because things are always going to get more difficult as you go on with the game. And trust me, I lose more games of this than I win, but I still love playing it for all these reasons. Every single one of them. That's why it's number 2 on the list. My number 1 favorite co-op game to solo. Horrified. Yes, this new game has definitely jumped at me, and it is on several lists at this point right now in my mind, that's for sure. And this is so much fun. I have as much fun, I think, soloing this as I have with co-op playing the game. And this particular one, Horrified, I'm specifically talking about Horrified Universal Monsters. I got to get my hands on the American Monsters. Haven't gotten that yet. But this is, it takes the classic Universal movie monsters that I think everyone is familiar with: Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Bride of Frankenstein, Invisible Man. Takes them all and potentially puts them all, or a percentage of them, in your small little town, your village. And this is like a very kind of, I don't know, 1930s, 1940s, right, kind of feel, like the time period the movies came out in. And that's wonderful. I've never seen a game that really does take this kind of thematic approach. And that is the first thing that really caught my attention about this game. One of the first and earliest things I realized that I do love about it. The system, as far as mixing and matching the monsters go, creates a level of difficulty right there, because each monster individually has their own difficulty level rating, right? But then the difficulty of the overall game that you're going to play is determined by the amount of monsters that you're going to be using, that are going to be running around your town, your village, right? So you have this kind of like dual system of creating a sliding difficulty system. So you could have the difficulty of 3 monsters, but if they're easy and medium settings as opposed to medium and hard settings, it's gonna alter yet again the type of difficulty. And that nuance of setting up difficulty is absolutely amazing, and I love toying with it. Abbott and Costello. I'm never gonna stop mentioning that about this game. Abbott and Costello, or as you see them, if you don't know who I'm talking about, Chick and Wilbur. Chick and Wilbur, the people on that card, on that token, that standee, that's Abbott and Costello, and that's from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, comedy spoof movie. And the fact that they have them in there just amazes me so much. I would never, if they didn't have Abbott and Costello in there, I wouldn't be sitting here thinking to myself, well, why don't they have Abbott and Costello in there? It wouldn't have really crossed my mind. But the fact that they did put them in there is one of the best, coolest little Easter eggs I've ever seen in a board game. And, you know, the fact that while you're playing the game, there's this level of strategy just in the movement itself, especially when you have more monsters, when you have, well, 2 maybe, but when you start getting into 3 monsters or more on the board, moving around itself is just a task that can be amazingly difficult. So the board setup is really cool, with all these little ways around, the bridges, using the waterways, and it really does make you think about your movement and how you're going to get places, because you need to get around to get the items you need to accomplish what you need to do to defeat the monsters. And just the fact that you have to plan a strategy around your movement is just another little nuance to this game that I really enjoy. Now, as I was just saying, you got to pick up items in order to deal with the monsters. That's another thing that I find amazing about this game and fun about this game is the fact that each and every monster has a unique way that you have to do to defeat it. It's not like do the same thing and you defeat Frankenstein, do the same thing to defeat Dracula or the Wolfman. They each have their own thing. You have to chase away the creature from the Black Lagoon. You have to prove to the police that there's an invisible man. You have to teach humanity to the monsters Dr. Frankenstein created so that they can live a normal, quote, normal life and know what love is. Every one of these monsters has a different way that you're going to have to deal with it. And I just have an amazing amount of fun with that in my head while I'm going around the board trying to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And as I said, trying to dodge the monsters. So Horrified, specifically the Universal Monsters, is right now currently my #1 favorite co-op game to solo. What are your favorite co-op games to solo?